View from the Gutters, Episode 74. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel, and then recommend and vote on the book for the next episode. Warning: the discussion portion of this show has massive spoilers for that book. On this episode, we discuss Black Science, and to skip ahead to the recommendation section, skip to 1 hour, 37 seconds.
Do you remember a movie called My Science Project?
No.
It's about these kids that make a time machine. It's pretty.
Oh, yeah. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I saw
No,
that.
that's a different
No, you're
one.
talking about Explorers. Where
No,
they
that's
make
a different. That's
spaceship.
when they make a spaceship. That's also a different one.
That
That was the first time I ever heard. It's the stuff that dreams are made out of.
Oh, yeah. And then he's like, Marty, we gotta go back in time.
Yeah, that was called. Welcome to View from the Gutters, episode of What the Fuck Ever.
Yeah, what is this? I don't know.
74.
Yeah, sounds good.
74?
Toby, you should tilt your mic down. There you go.
How's that? Is that better?
It's better, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Booyah!
Welcome to View from the Gutters, episode 74.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Joe Preddy.
I'm Tobiah Panshin.
And I'm Cade Reynolds.
Stop it, the both of you.
You can
the
tell
hell,
the
Joe?
episodes where some of us have had caffeine and others of us have not.
I haven't. I'm
See?
actually really excited because a bunch of things that will happen this week, like Kirby gets paid and I'll have money to buy things like caffeine and food for my house again.
Yeah, that's what I did today. Was just drink like 4 cups of coffee. 'Cause I was like, I don't have a lot of food in the house, so I'm just gonna drink a lot of coffee instead.
That's fair.
No, that's a good way to live your life.
I thought it was. It was convenient. That's
That's
what
how
it
I do.
was. And
I
now I
mean,
have
normally-
a shit ton of energy.
It's normally I don't have any money for food. Let's do all the meth I have, and then I'm out of meth, so I just drink a lot of coffee. And
Why don't-
now I have no meth or coffee.
Question.
So now I'm just kind of like,
Query. Why don't you just sell the meth?
because then what would I do?
Money can be used to buy many things, Joe.
But I
Money
mean, could I
be
use
used
it
to
to
purchase goods and services?
That's my favorite Simpsons quote. When he's like,
Well, the
oh, I
fact that
wanted
he's
a
talking-
peanut. Yeah.
The fact that he's talking to his own brain.
Yeah.
And he's like, explain how.
He's like, I really wanted a peanut. And he's like, a $20 can be exchanged for many peanuts. Explain how. I love Homer.
Or no,
There's
it's
that
with
moment-
$20 one can purchase many peanuts.
Yeah.
There's that moment where his brain's going like, oh, what it's saying, don't say something. He's like, don't say something, don't say this. It's like he's
Isn't that Family Guy?
Marge asks him a question, and Homer's like brain, it zooms in on his brain and is going, don't say the thing that you're not supposed to say. And then
He's picturing somebody naked.
yeah, and like he says it, and then his brain's like, that's it, I'm leaving. And you just hear him like leave and like slam a door and then drive off. I have that moment all the time.
I'm of course, because Family Guy came after The Simpsons. There's a lot of similarities, but back in the early days of Family Guy, that's one of my favorite jokes. Is when he's like in the job interview. It's like probably season 1 or 2, and he's like, "What do you see yourself doing in 5 years?" And he's like, "Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your wife. Don't say doing your son." And also
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Also, the one where Lois is like, she's like mad at Peter for something, and she's like, "Oh, I'll just hold it deep inside me, and what could possibly happen?" And then it zooms in on her brain, and there's like a little Peter's head inside her brain. And he's like, "I'm a tumor. I'm a tumor. I'm a tumor. I'm a tumor."
My favorite line from Family Guy is the one where he meets the mafia boss, and he's like, what do you want me to do? Whack a guy, off a guy, whack off a guy, because I'm married. For me, it never got any better than that.
No, the old school Family Guy before it got canceled was really funny.
Seasons 1 through 3 were really good.
I was in high school too, so it was like the perfect age for those jokes to be funny for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. That's fair.
However, the seasons 1 through 3 are volumes 1 and 2 on DVD, not
that's-
volume 3.
That's not confusing at all.
Well,
Comic
I mean,
books.
this is comic books. Like, talking about confusing, like, titling systems.
Oh, my God.
Nothing fucking comes even
We're
remotely
adept.
close.
You have no idea.
We are adept.
No idea.
We
So,
are adept.
Wait.
Adroit.
We have a very special birthday today.
We
oh, do we?
do.
Yeah. it's the Ginger Yeti's birthday.
It is.
Technically,
nobody tells me nothing.
It's tomorrow when we're recording it, and it will be yesterday when we release this.
So it's too late for you to wish him a happy birthday.
That's right.
But
if you would like to wish Kate a happy birthday,
and also if you have a time machine, you can go back in time and wish him a happy birthday.
that would be
Also,
a criminal waste of time.
Since we
machine.
I don't
can't
think
hear
so.
you, you can all, after we've said our bit, you can say, I knew it was Cade's birthday, and I wished him a happy birthday in my mind yesterday.
Correct.
Nobody's here to prove you wrong.
That's
We're
true.
not- We're not on a witch hunt yet.
Kate's not telepathic. He doesn't know what you're thinking.
He might be, though.
That I know of.
Happy
In any case, happy birthday, Kate.
Thank you.
birthday.
Now
It's
let's
actually-
talk
it's
about comic books.
about-
Yeah,
Black.
you chose to spend your birthday with the likes of us.
So we're talking about black science.
And Chard, you pitched this one.
Yeah, Caucasian science. No,
Caucasian science. Asian science. Wait, no, that's not.
that's not
right.
correct.
That's probably offensive, and I apologize
sure it
if it
is.
is. So
Luminosity turned
Why-
down to 0 in Photoshop science.
I went with Caucasian because you can't offend anyone by making fun of white people. Things I learned from the internet. Yeah, I did pitch this
I'm
one.
offended by that.
I'm sure you are. I pitched this one, and it's good. I just really like Remender's sci-fi stuff. I'm just like, straight out the gate, when this series was announced, it reminded me a lot of the anticipation I felt every time I picked up a new trade of Fear Agent, where it was just like, it's cool genre fiction. Like, he knows how to write the character bits. We've seen that with Uncanny X-Force. We know he knows how to run a team. Like, I wasn't worried about any of that stuff. So I knew it would be a fun exploration of a genre piece. And the pitch that kept floating around before the series was launched was it's like Lost in Space through the multiverse, which I think is it's a fairly apt description. Since then, I think a lot of people have described it better, kind of as more of a Sliders analogy, or like similar to Sliders, the show, which I
Like,
never saw, so I don't know.
Imagine
what
if Sliders had been good.
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, basically.
I never saw Sliders. In my head, I always think that it's Quantum Leap, but that's not correct.
Quantum Leap had differences.
It
Well,
was that was the
Sliders-
one I saw.
Sliders actually ran into a very similar problem that I see this story potentially having, given how many characters have died already.
Yeah,
Where in Sliders, by like the 3rd or 4th season, I think everyone who had started originally was gone. And it was a
Except for
completely
one.
new group of people, except for the black guy,
Yep.
funnily enough.
yeah.
Rembrandt was the only one
Because
that
like
was
the whole thing,
episode 1 all the way to the final episode.
the whole thing early on was that they were trying to get back home because they were sliding uncontrollably,
Right,
which is exactly the same setup that we have here.
right.
And you have like all these fucking people dying in this series. I mean, they're only up to issue 6 and they've already had, 4 people die? Like half their group is
Yeah,
dead.
There's Jen, and then the bodyguard guy, Ward, and then the main guy.
Yeah, well, but he
Grant.
may not be dead.
Well, this is my counter argument to that, was that although we may not see these characters make it through the end, they've already introduced a new jumper with them. Like, it's hard. You could have easily missed this part, but I forgot about it, and then the shaman shows back up at the end of the 6th issue, and I was like, oh yeah, they brought that fucker with them.
Which strikes me.
Well, it's interesting because I think that we haven't gotten to the plot yet.
Right.
Like all of this has been set up, and their original idea is we're going to fix the pillar and we're going to get home. And I can't imagine that that's going to be the thesis of the series in an ongoing way, given how many people have died and the fact that they're bringing other people with them and
Right.
other versions of them have shown up. Like there are shoes yet to drop in terms of what this story is going to be about.
Yeah, I have theories about where I think it's going to go. I think that a lot of what will come is more of the original thesis of the team, which is to explore the multiverse and to find out what's at the center of all of it. Again, I forgot to close the window, so welcome to Seagull Town. You couldn't hear it on the last recording, though, but they're loud today. But no, I think that exploring the center of the multiverse, like what's at the kind of the center in which...
What's in the heart of the onion?
Yeah, and there's some foreshadowing to that where basically the son is asking like, oh, that's where, God could be. And the dad's like, no such thing as God. But if there was, this would be the closest thing to it. And it's kind of like, oh, what is going on at the center of the multiverse? And I think that a lot of what's going to come next is kind of the interactions between more similar multiverses. So we've seen, what's the main character's name? Grant?
Yeah, Grant.
We've seen a Grant from another universe.
Well, we've seen two of them because we saw the monkey Grant too.
Oh yeah, that's true. And
Gotta love Monkey Grant.
I do love that. And I think that the mentions of the fact that like every Grant we've seen gets his kids killed. Like, I think we'll see more of that be explored, and that every...
Well, except now he's not around to get his kids killed.
Yeah, but he put them in that situation, like...
Oh, that's fair.
You know what I mean?
But Monkey Grant's, like, vapor soul thing jumped into the girl, the blonde woman, whatever her name is, that I can't fucking remember right now. And so they still have a Grant with them.
That's true.
Technically speaking.
And that one guy... who is the saboteur?
What is it?
Kadir.
Kadir.
That's it.
He is always the saboteur, and I think that we'll see like them interact with more multiverse versions. But alternatively, this could be a 24, 20, 12 issue arc. Like, we don't know how long it's going to be. And at some point, it may just be like, that's the end of that series. We may come back to it later, because that's something that Remender's done in the past also. So, that's why I think it kind of feels more like a genre piece, where it's like, we're just going to explore some of these ideas, and maybe he doesn't have a huge overarching like message or thing to say. Maybe he doesn't have like this profound message. He's just telling a cool story.
Given what I've read from Remender, which has mostly been Uncanny X-Force and Uncanny Avengers, I would be surprised if he didn't have an idea in his head, at least, of, if I keep doing this, this is where I'm going to go.
Yeah, I'm sure he has plans, but again, it's like Fear Agent has these overarching like moral questions and these sort of controversial ideas that come up, like, when is, what's the deal with war? When is it justified? When is a preemptive strike? Like, all the stuff that Heath goes through, and just like his fallout from the war is all really interesting stuff to unpack and explore. But at the same time, I don't feel like that was his thesis for Fear Agent. I feel like his thesis was I'm going to tell a cool space guy story, and that stuff comes natural. Like, I think Remender has good ideas, but having read a lot of his older stuff, they all kind of feel more like genre pieces. Like, when you read stuff like Red Sea and End League and stuff, they to me, they feel a little bit more like genre pieces and a less like, I don't know, like less like Morrison and less like Ellis, where there's something they're trying to say in a genre setting. They're telling a specific story that they're saying. I don't know. It just feels a little different than that. So I could easily see this ending sooner than we think. It's popular, but
my experience has been that usually an author has something that they're trying to say, something that they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Like, they have a specific goal in mind for a work, even if it's just to tell an interesting story.
Oh, yeah.
And because everything that we've seen thus far has just been set up, like, I don't feel like we've gotten to the meat of the story yet. I think that what we've seen in Volume 1 is all prologue.
It could be. I mean, I don't know.
Well, like, I mean, you have all of these elements that he's setting up with the pillar and the alternate Grant who has the little pillar and the things that he's saying in terms of, like, you're poking holes in the multiverse. But then I think it was also him who was saying, like, none of this is real.
Right.
Like, he's dropping ideas into the story. He's building the setting.
Yeah.
He's establishing the characters. He's putting them in motion. And that's all got to be building to something. Because if you just look at the title of this series,
yeah,
black science. It's this idea of forbidden scientific knowledge,
Yep.
things that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if this is just a story about like they go out and they get lost in the multiverse and then some crap happens, like that doesn't fulfill the promise of the title.
I think that the line that makes me think that this is all kind of part of that idea is when Grant says, like, I got my kids killed because I chose to meddle with black science. Mm-hmm. Like, what you see him doing is all a result of his hubris, is just him going, like, I'm a scientist, I can do it. I never asked if I should or not, I just did it, which is an idea that we see a lot. Like, we see that theme repeated through a lot of authors.
That is the theme, I think. This is about, I mean, I don't necessarily think that what both of you are saying is, I don't think you're saying mutually exclusive things. I think that Remender does love playing with genre.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's something that we see from him time and time again. And I think that he's definitely playing around with not just this idea of hardcore sci-fi, but also with the idea that, I can definitely see him diving into this idea of, like, morals and ethics regarding scientific research and discovery. And
there was one word that I used to describe Uncanny X-Force, and that was consequences.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the idea of like knowledge that man was not meant to have has been a recurring theme in science fiction.
Yeah.
And I think it's done badly a lot. And I don't think that Remender does things badly. I think he's a very good writer. I like him a lot. And so looking at the series thus far, I think it's going to be looking at what are the consequences of using these black sciences, and what are what responsibilities does that put on you as a scientist? Yeah,
I think those are very similar themes to stuff that came up in Fear Agent. I think that they're definitely dropping a lot of hints of like, you basically are causing all the problems with the multiverse. I think that they're like some of my theories of just like, oh, what could possibly happen? Because I'm unable to read things without theorizing about what comes next. Like I try to not do that, but it's impossible for me. That's
the best part.
Yeah, well, I like it, except that sometimes it destroys a series for me because I come up with something that I really like and then it doesn't happen, and I'm like, it's not what I would have wanted, and that can destroy a series for me. However, I do think that some of the possibilities that exist are that when he created the pillar, when he made the jump, that he created all of these multiverses, and that these are just kind of echo universes of stuff from that original disaster. And that's why people are saying like, oh, this isn't real. And they keep kind of unpacking the idea that like, these are the consequences of messing with that science, that could all easily tie back into this is where this happened. And also kind of if you're thinking about the multiverse as sort of a universe, like there had to be an initial event, a Big Bang event, basically, that created all of this stuff. Like where did all this stuff come from? And
they talk about the middle of the onion is the original universe, and all the layers are decisions that weren't made.
Well, that's our current theory about like the what is that theory called? The infinite.
That's called the many worlds scenario, and that's a possible explanation for the dual slit experiment, which is a quantum physics experiment in which showed that it was basically that light travels both as a photon and as a particle and a wave, which is very strange.
What it was also showing was that the photons were receiving interference from each other when they were being sent at the sensor, and they assumed that it was because they were sending all of them at once. So they basically sent one at a time to prove that it was just the photon interference with other light photons that were in the same beam of light.
Well,
and they proved that they were being affected in the same way regardless if you sent one at a time or if you sent all of them.
They didn't. So using the word proof is tricky in this.
Science, sure.
Basically, what it is that light travels as a wave until it's observed, and then the waveform collapses and it travels as a particle. That is an incredibly simplistic explanation of a process that is incredibly complex.
Quantum physics is one of those things where I read about it and I like get the picture in my mind, and I'm like, okay, I understand this. And as soon as that picture disappears, I fucking don't understand.
Well, who had the famous quote that was he was like an amazing quantum physicist, and his famous quote is that no one understands quantum physics.
Yeah, and I mean,
but the experiment that I'm talking about is the one where they were sending like single particles at a time.
Yeah, that's the dual slit experiment. They were sending a photon at a time.
One of the explanations for why the interference is happening is that it was being interfered with by other photons from other universes. There's some overlap there.
The many worlds interpretation is that here this waveform collapsed in this way, and it led to this happening in another universe that lays slightly on top of ours, if top has any kind of meaning in a fourth dimensional universe.
Right.
It collapsed in a different way, and it ended up in a different place. And so this is very much in that like, I woke up this morning at 10 o'clock, right around 10 o'clock. I got up, I made coffee, I read about the new SCOTUS decision, which was fucking ridiculous. Right.
Well,
but there's a universe in which I got up 5 minutes early and I went to make coffee, but I fucking electrocuted myself. And there's one where I got up an hour later.
Every decision, the theory is that like every time you make a decision, it branches into alternate universe.
And
right? But my thought about the book is that bright center of the universe that they're talking about isn't. It doesn't exist until he turns the pillar on, and that's the center of the universe. And just like we theorize about the Big Bang now, is that there was a previous universe that existed before the Big Bang, and so like there was a multiverse, and that all ended, and then the new multiverse happened with the new pillar. I mean, like, there's tons of stuff that could happen in the series. Like they've set up a lot of ideas that could very possibly happen.
The nice thing, and I think the best thing about. I think the nice thing, my favorite thing about science fiction is it takes something that's established as thought and it kind of plays with this idea, right? Mm-hmm. And so the only real science I want in my science fiction is this whole idea that like, yes, there are many worlds. There are worlds where there was like, the Germans won World War II. There were worlds in which Archduke Ferdinand was never assassinated. There were worlds in which Hitler died of crib syndrome, there's this is kind of and this is a common theme in science fiction as it is
in comics too.
And and I mean that's my first thought is that like my reaction to all the people dying is that Exiles, which was a Marvel title for a while by Judd Winnick that Judd Winnick was writing, had a really good solution to that.
They just grab guys from other universes.
Somebody else. Like you're gonna be people are going to get caught up,
right?
Stuff
but
like
my point was, if the goal of the story is to get these characters home,
and
all of these people die and they grab other people, like how is that still the goal of the series?
I think that at least one of them will make it home, right? Like that's the thought. But
maybe.
And also Grant made Kadir promise to get his kids home. So like I think that's kind of the next arc is basically them trying to get the kids home, and that like whether that works or not, we'll see.
I personally think in the very next issue everybody dies and it's game over.
Could happen. Could be the end. Issue 7 is the last one. They just chose not to put it in the trade because they're dickheads.
Yeah, they are.
Sure.
And there's a whole bunch of pages that just say, "Hey, got you."
Yeah.
In the trade. It's a trade. It's a $15 trade. It's got one issue and a whole bunch of like middle fingers and.
Yeah, no, that's probably what's going to happen. It's a good theory. No, I think that when you have a series that's built on a very, I don't want to say simplistic idea, but a very central idea that is recurring in sci-fi, which is basically like
it's an idea that we've seen before.
Yeah, which is maybe you shouldn't fuck with this stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not, right?
Don't mess with forces you don't understand.
Yeah, I think that's a simple quote. I hate using the word simple, but I think that's a simple enough idea.
Straightforward enough
idea that it isn't going to take tons and tons and tons of pages to explain that idea. So that's why I am like, you kind of just show that happening, and then it's up to the reader to interpret like what happened.
You could easily say the same thing about Why the Last Man, and that series certainly went on and on.
But that's one of the major complaints about the book, is that it was like such a simplistic theory that it didn't need 60 issues.
Right, and I'm saying you really can't make that judgment just based on like what is the core concept. Like that does not necessarily reflect on how in depth or how long the series is going to go.
Right, and something we saw early on in Why the Last Man was that it was very much a character study. That the thesis of the book was like, well, he's the last man on Earth. But it was almost irrelevant to the fact that, like, this book is about these characters. And the setting was the, Twilight Zone episode setting. But the book was really about these characters. And something we see from Black Science really early on, in my opinion, is that these characters are all kind of expendable. So it's not as much about the characters. There are good character moments. I love the moments he has with, was it Rebecca?
Yeah.
The woman that he's cheating on his wife with. I like those character building moments because, Grant's an a-hole, and those help to solidify
that's the interesting thing to me about Remender is that he really loves flawed characters, doesn't he?
Well, everyone is flawed.
Regardless.
No, I mean,
there's a specific kind of character in fiction, right? Yeah. Like, yes, in real life, Chard, everyone is flawed. I agree with you. But in fiction, that is not always the case.
My point being that, like, he writes what we would call, like, really real characters.
Well,
right?
But he really, there's a certain kind of...
Well, he likes to challenge his characters. He likes to take a character and go, what would this person not ever do?
Mm-hmm.
And then push them into a situation where they have to confront that moral choice not to ever do that thing and go, what if they did do that? What if they felt like they had to do it? What other options do they have? What are the consequences of their decisions to either do or not do that thing? Like, he is very much about internal conflicts.
Well, he also, in Fear Agent specifically, has the character be like, yep, I'm 100%. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. I did this thing. Oh, shit, that was the wrong thing to do. Well, which I think is really cool, too, because he's just writing that character's, like, determination and will and saying, like, this is what this character would do in that situation. And because of that, here are all these reactions and consequences now. So
and that's what this strikes me. This feels much more like Fear Agent to me, which is good because I like Uncanny X-Force quite a bit. But I think he had more. I think you can tell that there's a lot more freedom for him in Fear Agent because it's his own property. And this feels a lot more like Fear Agent to me, and I'm interested. Like, I kind of had no idea what to expect when I picked up this book, and I really think, although I will say that there's a couple panels in the first issue where Grant really reminds me of Rusty Venture.
Yeah.
And I was just like, in my head, I just kept hearing Doc Venture going, "Run, Rusty, run!" And
well, he wouldn't say, you mean not Doc Venture, Rusty's dad, but you mean Hank and Dean's dad. Venture, right?
Rusty
Venture.
Yeah. But, and that's kind of what I like about it is that it does kind of have this incredibly it is kind of tangentially related to that. It is this kind of almost incredibly fucked up. It's got this really kind of weird, fucked up Johnny Quest on crack vibe where it's like, you have a scientist and you have his kids and they're really not, they shouldn't be in this situation, but they are.
Yeah, I think Will Robinson is a huge archetype for Johnny Quest type characters.
Oh, absolutely.
For sure, right?
Absolutely.
That's
the two of them
Space.
Existed pretty much at the same time. Lost in Space and Johnny Quest.
I don't remember when Lost in Space aired.
I think they were
in the 60s because the first season was in black and white and then after that it was in color. So it had to have been like 65, 66.
Yeah.
I think
I'll look it up.
They were either.
I also don't know when Johnny Quest
I think they were
either,
concurrent with each other, but
no,
I think you're right. They were very close together.
Yeah. But that character archetype for sure has influenced like a ton of stuff.
Is really good, and we've seen from. Grant's kids are not just set dressing. Like these are, and this is one thing I love because I think all too often kids like we talk a lot about this, about women just being used as kind of like set dressing or like plot devices. kids are also used that way. And as a dad, that always kind of bothers me.
Well, especially
So Johnny Quest was 1964. Lost in Space was 1965.
okay, very close.
So
And I especially think that that's true in books that are written from an adult's perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Often with stuff like Johnny Quest, or like books written for teens and stuff where the main character is a teenager. Like, I feel like that's not the case.
No, it's not.
But in books like this, like, you kind of expect the kids to just be like, oh, those are his kids. But you've got Pia, like, fucking punching Rebecca in the face.
Yeah.
And you've got his son, like,
that's
holding
my
a gun up and being
favorite
like, nobody's
moment in
fucking
this-
going anywhere.
My
I love
favorite
that.
moment in this trade was when they're fighting and she's like, no, fuck you, I'm going. And his son is just standing there. He's like, nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's great because I think a lot of the time, like I despise the trope of like, it's either parents and they're like, I have to save my children, and the children are fucking can't do anything.
Right.
Or it's the teenagers like, oh, we really know this bad thing is going to happen, but all the adults are incompetent and they won't listen to us. And I fucking hate that too. It's like,
Those are very old.
they
tropes,
are, but
yeah.
I mean, there's still,
No,
we still see this shit
absolutely,
happening like
absolutely.
again and again. And so whenever a kid is like, no, I am a person. I also have motivations. I also have a stake in the situation. And I'm not just going to be fucking passive about it.
I feel like they're a good age to, like, Pia being basically 18 and the younger kid being a couple years younger than
Yeah.
her. I think that those are a good age for kids in this.
Is that how old they were? They
Pia's
looked
8.
younger.
Yeah, they say that she's like 17. Like, she says at one point, she's like, I'm almost 18.
Yeah,
like, I'm an
she
adult.
seems like a more adult character.
And then
his son seems like,
I think he's like 15 or 14 or something.
Yeah,
like, he's a
some
couple
of
They
years younger.
look like 12 and 10 years old.
Yeah.
well, I figured the daughter was about probably like late teens, mid to late teens.
The only way I know is that she says
She
it.
does say that though. Now that
Otherwise,
you say it.
you're right. Like, I would have thought they were younger.
The son reminds me, seems like he's maybe Audrey's age, like 12.
Yeah. But what I also think is interesting about what they've mentioned so far in the series is, Grant always gets his kids killed. Well, what happens when the kids outlive Grant? Like, what kind of ruckus are they going to cause in the multiverse? And I think that that's like the cool next part of this story that keeps me wanting to come back.
Well, part of me wonders if at some point he's going to do the time skip thing where it's like we saw the setup and then it jumps to a few years later and like everything's gone completely off the rails and these kids are like now grown up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, do a reboot time jump.
Well,
And not a reboot as in like New 52 reboot, but as in the show reboot.
The thing I think I find myself
That
liking
was
the
an
most.
awesome show.
It was, and it's the only thing that makes me not murder Dan DiDio. Because he was involved in that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I guess so.
You got lucky.
I think to me that the only thing really, no, I mean, not the only, the thing that I'm kind of most interested in about this book is that Remender is a skilled enough writer and the premise is interesting enough so that you could really do anything and I would be like, okay, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
It's so rare to just implicitly trust creators like that. But, like, with the team that's on this book, if they continue to do this, I'm basically in it for the long haul. It's like, I trust Remender enough. Scalera's art is unfucking real.
Can we talk?
And, what is it? Dean
White.
Dean White.
The colors, man.
Unfucking
Can we talk a little bit about what I took to be like the whole Conan homage in the first issue with the dancing fish lady?
Oh, yeah.
God, yeah.
Totally.
I thought that was a really nice little nod to like the art of Boris Vallejo and Frank Franzetta and this whole like
Yeah.
very Conan-esque mythos type. Like
That's very true.
I like that nod because that's kind of, as we talked about with Prophet, this whole idea that like hardcore sci-fi almost does have a fantasy element because everything is so fantastical.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I really like is that I think when you tell a story like this, you have to be careful. This has been done before, and it would be really easy to fall into the trap of like, oh, let's go to the world. Let's go to Nazi world. And let's go to like crazy, everybody's inbred world. And like, we've seen all those. Like, I don't want to see those. I want to see a world where like,
It's all fish people.
There was never
like,
a new world discovered. Like, that shit just didn't happen. And eventually, like, the fucking tribes of the new world came together.
What does he call it? Reverse manifest destiny?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool. Or, like,
Crazy.
the fish people versus
really,
frog people.
With this kind of story, like, it's not about the idea. It's about the execution.
Yeah,
like, you
absolutely.
can take any stupid idea and execute it well will make for an awesome story.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think that this book is executed very, very well. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't talk about the one fucking complaint that I have about this series. But this is literally the one complaint that I have. And that is in the first issue, there are way too many narration boxes.
I was
hugely distracted by how many narration boxes there were, and I actually read through the issue twice. And the second time I ignored all of the narration boxes, and it reads just as well, if not better. I think you need to keep a few of them.
Yeah.
But it's just way too wordy.
I was actually going to mention that because I think that it's interesting that this series, and not just the first issue, but all of it, is very heavily narrated. Like, there are narration boxes, like, everywhere.
It gets a lot less heavily narrated after the first issue.
But you still see that the series is driven primarily through the narration boxes of Grant.
Yeah, that's true.
And now that he's not around.
Well, we also did get narration boxes from Ward when he was the focused character.
And I think we've gotten a few from Rebecca, maybe?
Well, we've gotten one from Kadir as well.
Yeah.
Like, there are, and I think that's kind of, strangely enough, I started reading the Song of Ice and Fire books after this most recent season of the show that must not be named.
Why would you not name it?
Game of Thrones. Because it hurts my heart, all right?
It
hurts my heart.
all the time.
Hey, I remember when this podcast started that it was pretty much like the Community podcast, a little bit of comic books thrown in.
I'm sorry. That's because Community's awesome.
I agree that Community is awesome. I'm just saying, don't give us any shit.
I also still talk about Venture Brothers like almost every episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, it's usually relevant.
But
maybe.
I think the intro, like, I really like having that point of view aspect to the book, because, like, I didn't have a problem with the narration in the first one. I felt it.
You're talking about A Song of Ice and Fire, like the way that the books are written. Each chapter is from a different character's perspective, so you get inside their head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely, and it adds shade and color to things that is much harder to get from, like, I guess a second person view where you're just or an omniscient view when you're just viewing
third person omniscient. A second person view would be if my story was talking about what you did.
Right. Okay.
There have been a few very successful stories told in the second person.
Well,
but they're very rare.
Yeah, it's because it's very difficult.
Actually, funnily enough, I was just talking about this with my brother. There was a series of books when we were kids that were choose your own adventure books. And the ones that we really liked were time machine books, where the story was actually you going back in time to find out historical facts. And we had one about dinosaurs, and there was one about King Arthur. And they were told in the second person.
I think I remember those. Were they? I'm trying to remember what they were called. I'll come back.
The ones
They were
I
just
had
called
were
Time
all
Machine.
about, like,
Were they? Okay.
Yeah.
I had a series of 4 of them about Atlantis.
Ooh.
They were really cool. They were like hip, like teenage choose your own adventure. They weren't like
cool.
baby choose your own
doing
adventure.
drugs and banging chicks.
Yeah, like,
Well, it's funny because these time machine books
what
were
teenagers do, right?
almost like a
If you
video
decide
game
to
without
fuck
the
her,
video
go
game.
to page 18. If you
Damn
decide
it,
not-
she's pregnant.
Like at the beginning of the book, it'd be like, you can choose from these items. And then as the book would go on, it's like, if you picked to have the matches, turn to this page. If you picked to have the Bowie knife, turn to this page.
Oh man, the days before video games.
Yeah, man, it was rough.
It was rough shit, man.
It was.
No, what's
you don't
really
even
weird
know.
is I have an amazing amount of nostalgia for like weird storytelling games, like text adventures and stuff in that style, because I remember reading books like that and thinking like, this would make a sweet video game. Imagine 20 years from now when video games are like this, and then 20 years from now we get to shoot stuff on a brown world. Look how far we've come. I get to be a white guy with stubble and shoot brown stuff.
Don't talk
on a
shit
brown
about
world.
Spunk Gargle Wee Wee,
Yeah.
all right?
Sometimes you get to be a Czechoslovakian guy with stubble.
Look how fucking far we've come.
But
So great.
at the risk of, or to prevent the derailment of this conversation.
No, I'm done.
into-
I'm just
Now bounce us back on the rails, Jim.
I think I really liked all the narration in the first issue because I felt it added urgency to the issue.
It also feels stylistically like noir in the way that it works.
It does.
And
it does.
As Joe was saying, like, this is very much a Conan story.
Yeah.
Like, the first issue is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you get a lot of narration in the Conan stories, but not first-person narration, and not quite as much. And it didn't bother me in any of the later issues. It was just the first one where I felt like it was too much right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And reading through it again, like, I think he could have gone a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's kind of what pulled me out of the first issue as well. I had a really hard time getting into this book, and I think that could have been one of the reasons.
You've been silent thus far, Cade. Do you want to talk about your feelings on this book a little bit?
Sure. Well, so in the first issue, I had a couple problems because I thought Jen was his wife.
I did too the first time I read it.
And so throughout the first issue, I was just like, they just fridged his wife. Like, and I was just like, this is such a blatant fridging. Like, I expected more of you, Remender. It wasn't until later I found out that wasn't his wife.
Doesn't make it not a fridging.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
No, that's fair.
It maybe makes it less blatant, except that Jen could have easily been a dude.
Yeah.
No,
right?
that's true.
Well, I think
but
that...
even a dude could be considered fridging.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, again, we've talked about this before, but the fridging trope is only a problem because it predominantly happens to women.
To women,
in
yeah.
my opinion.
Fair.
Like, I think that it's fine that characters die to further another character's story. I think that's just a part of some fiction. The problem occurs when it's all of those deaths are deaths of women to further males' characters' stories.
And you have a spectrum, too. You have the girlfriend that was introduced in the first issue with this character that is only fucking introduced to get shoved into the fridge.
And I thought that was his wife, and there was no motivation, no backstory, anything like that. Just like, second page, she's dead, and he's got to go on and save his kids. And I'm like, what the fuck?
She's a throwaway character that is only there to demonstrate that shit is real and people will die. And oh my God, this is a horrible situation. So you don't think that this is like high adventure or whatever, where everybody's going to be okay at the end.
Right. And she is in the book more later, which I do find like, okay, well, you're going to make her an actual character in retrospect. Like, I guess that's fine, but it's weird to make me care about the character later after she's dead.
Well, and again, it's always possible for her to come back as an alternate reality version of herself.
So, continue, Kate.
Oh, I did like the scene with the fish lady and saving her got him karma points. I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, it wasn't really until issue 2 or 3 that I really I think for me it was the back. It was the scene where they look back in the past and see the kids coming in, and the one guy says, like, "Welcome to the Dimensionauts." And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down for this book. And then
that's an interesting thing to get you hooked. I don't know.
It's like, okay, now we're going on an adventure with the Dimensionauts. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, even though you've already seen what happens and it's horrible.
Yeah, well,
I did also notice it bugged me, and I know that it shouldn't. Fish don't have tits. The fish lady had fucking enormous goddamn tits.
Oh, and an ass.
That was only to let you know it was a lady.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's the only thing that lets people know that that's a lady.
Yeah,
If you don't have tits.
it wasn't a fish though.
I
it
was
anthropomorphic. Fishy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you can justify.
Fish
obviously,
also don't
this
have
world,
arms.
Obviously, this world has a very divergent course of evolution.
Yeah.
And, like, on that level, I'm fine with it. Like, from an in-universe perspective, like, okay, you can reasonably justify that as making sense. But as a reader of a comic book and comic books having a certain history, I was just like, what the fuck ever. All right.
I was also bothered by this. I was like, this is like the first issue. Like, But and then I was like, okay, I get it. It's cool. It's like this whole like Conan homage thing, and you're doing this whole like adventure thing, and that's
to me though. It's as annoying as the fact that in Star Trek every fucking alien looks like a human with shit makeup on.
Absolutely,
like, it's the same. To me, it's like everything is humanoid.
That has always been a conceit to the medium. Like Star Trek aliens look stupid because it's a TV show with a crappy budget. Like,
does it though?
Yes.
Does it though?
Was Roddenberry out there like Klingons are going to be 42 feet tall and have 400 arms and shoot laser beams?
Oh
out of their
my
asshole?
god,
like,
they would have been so much better.
Was it really planned, or was he just like, yeah, the Klingons are this race of man-like guys?
If they were 42 feet tall, would Starfleet have had to build special ships for them once they joined the...
Actually, if you ever watched Star Trek the Animated Series, there was the alien helmsman who was only in the cartoon, and he was originally planned for the series, but they couldn't put him in there because they didn't have enough budgets to make the puppet.
I don't know, man. The Muppet Show went pretty strong.
I'm not a fan of anything that would...
But they didn't have to make, like, starship sets for the Muppet Show.
No, they had to build, like, a whole theater for the Muppet Show.
They had
to build that balcony for...
Maybe the Muppet Show had a bigger budget than Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't know.
Most certainly
I totally understand that it was definitely because it was a TV show, and that, like, it's easier to just throw makeup on a guy than it is to build
one
like,
of the
a
things
whole
that I
thing.
love about comic books is you can do anything.
Yeah.
Because it costs the exact same amount of money to draw one page as another page.
Yeah, I mean, roughly.
Yeah.
More detailed art tends to take
yes,
longer.
that's true. But your imagination is not limited by what is possible to do within your effects budget.
Yeah.
It is limited by your imagination and the amount of detail that you're willing to put into it.
Right.
And there is incredibly effective art that is not detailed at all.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's all about, like the artist's page rate and how they draw and like what they can, their ability to make you feel like you're actually there or not.
Yeah,
like there's so much involved. Totally.
One of the great things about modern comics is that the technology has evolved to the point where amazing colors are possible. Mm-hmm. And that's great.
And we're even better than we were several years ago because with the advent of, digital comics becoming more mainstream, colors are only going to look better in digital because there are more colors in digital than there are in print. That's just a reality of the medium.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you go to print as a colorist, you read old coloring, the books for colorists and stuff. There was like, oh, you always work in CMYK because this is eventually intended to be printed, which has fewer color options than RGB, which is what you would use for digital material, like online websites and stuff. So that being said, like you can have much more vibrant colors that exist in RGB color that don't exist in CMYK. So if everything moved to digital, we would have even more vibrant colors.
Yes.
Just to say, just as an added bonus to why I love digital. Colors get even cooler.
That's fair.
I don't know. I read this originally. I read it in print because I was reading it for Top of the Stack, and now I've gone back and bought the trade from Image's DRM-free website, which is great, and it is unbelievably good looking digitally.
Oh no,
I think it looks even better.
The copy I had is also it's probably the same copy, and it looks outstanding.
Yeah,
it is a feast for the light-taking orbs.
Yeah, I do love Matteo Scalera art in this, and I think that we're right in mentioning that the colors elevate this to an even, even more surreal level.
On a personal note, and I'm not knocking Scalera at all. This is not my favorite style, but the art just fucking transforms it into this goddamn beautiful work of art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really I love the palette.
The scene in the first issue where there's all the fucking turtles with pyramids on their back and the lightning coming down and everything's orange and purple and green. Yep. I mean, we talked about this on the X-Force episode before, but fuck it, we'll talk about it again. Just the palette that he uses is so crazy and otherworldly.
Yep. Well, he's influenced a lot of other comic creators now, too, because you see where you would never have seen comics colored with this palette before. I mean, never is a strong word, but where you would rarely see comics colored in this palette, you see them more and more now, I think, because of the success of Uncanny X-Force.
Well, and
You know, the thing that it reminds me of is that it feels like it's bordering on CGA. Do you know what CGA was?
Mm-mm.
So way fucking back in the day in computers, you had VGA, which was 256 colors. Before that, you had EGA, which was 16 colors. Before that, you had CGA, which was, I think, 4 colors. And it was like yellow, green, pink, and black. Like, I think it was that CMKY color palette that you were talking about.
Yeah, it was cyan, magenta, black, and yellow.
Yeah, like those were the colors that computers could project. And looking at like video games and stuff in CGA, they look just horrifying.
The Atari used that, right?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm talking about the games that I was playing on my Tandy 1000 personal computer back in 1987.
I know that
this feels very reminiscent of that.
The Atari 2600 had an incredibly limited color palette as well. That's why you'd see like weird pinks and greens.
I think it was
that they didn't use on the NES later.
The original computers were black and white or black and green, I guess, depending on your monitor. And then there was CGA, which was color graphics adapter, which was like the first computer color that they had. And then it was extended graphics adapter and then virtual graphics adapter or something like that. History of computers.
The thing I like the most about this palette is that this book does have a very noir feel. Like the black science is not just the forbidden nature, it's the story as well. Like especially in that first one, it's got this very like noir feel. And
that's something I was going to mention was Joe and I read a lot of detective fiction and stuff, and compared to like old noir detective fiction, like this guy is brief.
Narration.
Oh my god, reading old fucking detective noir where it's just like, are you gonna fucking it's been like 4 pages and you're still in a goddamn diner. Like, you've done nothing. Like, stop narrating.
And I mean, that was the mark of the great, I think, the mark of the truly great noir writers was there was less. Like
brevity.
Yeah, like Sam Spade didn't give you a fucking monologue. He was like, yeah, I'll take care of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it, because he played his cards home fucking close to the vest.
And something that we noticed too is that story is narrated by Grant, and then in the 5th or 6th issue, the one where he's dying, Grant is just talking. That's a wordy motherfucker. Like, that guy loves to hear his own voice. So, I feel like it fit that character really well. That in the first issue that we meet him, he's just fucking rambling.
Yeah,
and it fits him really well because in the next issue, it's what Ward is doing the narration, and he's
Ward
much
is
more brief. He's much more brief and much.
And this fits in with what we know of Grant, which is that regardless of his brilliance as a scientist, he's kind of a smarmy ass, like
egotistical.
He's definitely hubris. Narrating this. There's this in Scrubs. Dr. Cox is talking about how he's viewing the conversation that he's having with like it's JD or Elliot or something, and he's like, in my head right now I'm wearing robes and a crown and sitting on a throne in between us, and I'm not listening to you. And like it's this very kind of grandiose thing. Like Grant's narrating this to himself, and you can tell he's like, these are my tragic adventures, and it's all my fault because I was so filled with hubris, and my God, what have I done? And you're like, all right,
super,
okay. It's like, wow, dude, are you recording all this for later? Like, are you gonna? Is this your fucking memoirs that you're fucking writing now?
Yep.
But I think that's great because that's the kind of shit we're always talking about. That's tell me, or that's show me, don't tell me, right? That's like getting the sense of the character without coming right out and having somebody go, you know what, Dr. Grant, you are an egotist and a bastard.
Fair.
It's like you get to make that decision to yourself, and that's what I think I like the most about that narration.
And I totally agree with Toby, though. If it had been that for every issue, it would have weighed the series down incredibly. But having the very next issue be someone who is much more brief, like Ward, whose narration was actually
shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, and just like the legacy he feels as a soldier and as someone who like is trying to uphold his family name is a much different narration than what was happening in the first issue. Like, look how sweet I am.
Yeah.
My story's so tragic.
I wonder
I'm
if
such
it's
a
gonna
hardcore
be
hero.
I wonder if it's going to be a thing where anytime somebody gets a narration box, you're like, oh, they're fucking going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it's gone. It hasn't gone to some people who have died, and it has gone to people who haven't died yet, or
Yeah.
didn't die in that issue, right?
What is it, Sean?
Yeah.
He got some narration boxes, didn't he?
Oh, that's right.
I think he did.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? Kadir got some,
Yeah,
but he
Kadir.
has not died yet. And
And
then
there's also Chandra.
yeah. And then Grant got them and then didn't die right away. He died.
But he died
much
eventually.
later. Yeah. I mean, eventually all these guys could die. Who knows?
But yeah, like I said, the narration boxes in the first issue was my one complaint, and I am very willing to forgive this series that because the rest of it is so strong.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, I read this series so fucking fast. Like, I think it is an amazingly quick read just
really
because the curiosity of the story where you're just like, I just want to see what happens next. Like, that's why I'm turning pages so fast. It's not that I'm like, oh, God, it's boring and there's nothing happening. It's like, fuck, and then what? And then what? And I just keep turning the pages so fast. I think that without those narration boxes in the first issue, I would have been done with it in about 4 seconds.
Yeah, right?
And I would have been like, wow, I paid $3 for that.
I also really love the fact that they address the fact, like, how do they have money?
Yeah.
Like, they were pawning shit, and
Yeah.
then when they left that world, they're like, fuck it, steal everything in the hotel.
Oh, yeah.
We're not coming back here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just we don't know where we're going.
Take the
Just
towels, take the fucking fixtures, whatever you can
Take
get.
how
the
I-
cups. You never know when you need cups.
It's how I roll when I go through hotels.
Totally. Well, you need towels.
Anything that's not bolted down. The bed, that's mine. The chair's mine. Lamp, mine. Everything's mine.
You always know when he's been on vacation because Chart will come back and he's got like a bed tied to the roof of his car.
Extra beds. Got like 2 or 3 of them.
Like one time he stole a whole maid's cart. He had like
Oh,
a
yeah.
year's supply of toilet paper,
I'm getting out of there.
Dresser with a
toiletries.
remote control bolted to it.
Yep.
That was a weird one. He was
Not
a
the
little
TV,
manic
though.
that time, though.
That one was too well bolted down. I didn't get that TV, but I got
No.
that remote still.
You did cut out the drywall around that one painting that you really
Well, I
liked,
needed
though.
some drywall, so we took
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a win-win.
took all of that. Just imagine walking into a room after that. It's just like, they took the fucking drywall.
They must have really liked that painting.
No, just like all of the drywall in the room is gone.
That's
like they
just
just like
gone.
stripped all of it off.
Tear up all the carpeting.
Yeah.
The room wasn't like this when I
Is it being
rented it.
redone? Yep. Thanks, fake credit cards. Anything else you guys wanted to say about
No,
this
I mean,
series in
it's a good
particular?
series. I'm really looking forward to seeing where it goes in the future because, like I said, I don't think that we've gotten
Or
to the
the
plot yet. Like, I think
past.
this is all set up.
Yeah,
and I
very well could
I'm
be.
really interested to see where he takes us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like this is a journey doesn't matter how many issues it is, I'm on for the ride. Unless for some reason he's like, I killed your cat, and if you keep reading this book, I'm going to kill other things you love. Then I would probably stop reading. Maybe.
You don't have a cat.
Well, not anymore. Remender killed it.
I would stop reading this if he stopped doing this series and then followed it up with Blue Science and then Red Science, and then it just turns into a giant fucking Magic the Gathering gag.
Or it was like the League of, it was like the science, the colored science core.
Yeah, right.
Oh God!
That
gonna
would be
happen.
cool. Oh, why don't they do that?
And then they'll end with white science and nobody will care because actually no, because if they were going to do that, black science would have been,
Yeah.
and it's not. It's good, and I can see this going for a few more years. I'll probably let it build up because I like to read it in chunks. You know,
It's
like
so
a
funny.
thing.
I don't know. I just don't think this series is going to be that long. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just
No, I
like
mean I don't
being-
think it's going to be that long, but I can see it going 2 or 3 years.
I could see them easily getting 24 issues out of this, like no problem.
How long is Fear Agent?
Fear Agent's long. Fear
Like
Agent's
40?
It was 32 when we recorded the episode, but it was still ongoing.
Yeah, I think it's like 30. 36 is in that trade that was coming out when we were recording. I think there's one more after that, so I think it's like 42 or something.
That sounds about right.
somewhere in there.
I was gonna say mid 40s.
Yeah. But yeah, it's surprisingly long. But again, it was because it was designed as these miniseries, sort
Right.
of. And they would take breaks, and they had two separate artists. And at some point, he took a hiatus to go work on some other thing, and then he came back to it. So
You had to go fight a bear.
he had to go fight a bear. He was bored.
It actually reminds me, sometime we've got to do a podcast on Empire Volume 2.
Well, it
Oh,
just
that
started coming
just
out. There's
started,
only
yeah.
2 issues.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
no,
I mean,
that's a good call.
when it does.
yeah, when that
I
wraps
like-
up, that would be a good follow-up
I like
episode.
the idea of going back and doing some follow-ups because we didn't ever talk about the last 4 issues of Authority. Not that we really need to, but those are all collected into one trade now, which was our big
Well, and
complaint
something
about that.
important happens there.
Now
too.
that Prophet is pretty close to
Yeah,
wrapping
oh,
up,
that's
it
true.
might be nice to do an episode on the entire series rather than just the first volume.
we could do a long run on that. I think that's going to be 30 some odd issues, isn't it?
Oh, it's like 24.
Yeah, and we've already read the first one so it would be like a follow. Anyway,
Anyway,
I think that was a cool idea. We also listeners have said that we should go back and take a look at the continuations of some of the series we've talked about. So
Yeah.
yeah,
it's something
totally down for
we're,
that.
we're open to, and especially if like Black Science continues to be as good as it is, and in like 2 years when it wraps up, we may, I don't know, if we're still around, come back to it. Who knows?
Totes.
So keep
I know, but I'm not
keep,
saying anything.
keep an eye out for episode 242 where we talk about the end of Black Science.
Yeah.
So recommendations?
Yeah, Joe, what would you like for us to read?
I would like to read JLA Avengers by Kurt Busiek with art by George Perez. And basically, this is the only time I've read a multi-universe crossover. And I'm talking about the 4 core books, not any of the side books that came out.
This is the one with Dark Claw in it, right?
Yeah, you're fired. No, it is not. That was Amalgam, and just saying that made my
And by
Heart-
amalgam, you mean the greatest comic book company that has
heart.
ever-
Anyways, I'm not even going to dignify any of that with a
Are
response.
you not listening to our 100-hour Amalgam special?
100 hours.
I actually
It's-
I tried to get Joe to record some special short amalgam episodes with me, and we did 2, and then he's like, I will never fucking do this again.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yes.
This actually was a pitch on my list from Brian from Facebook.
Yes.
JLA Avengers. Yes, it's a great book.
For some reason, you're the only one that has that list.
it's
He sent it just to you.
it is it's 2 guys are, basically masters of their craft. George Perez is doing the pencils, and they look fan-fucking-tastic. This is where Kurt Busiek thrives. This is where he's playing with, like, the ideas behind superheroes, and it doesn't get much more iconic than the Avengers and the JLA.
Wait. He's playing with the ideas behind superheroes in this one. He's never done that before.
No, I know. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But this is great. This is the only multi-universe crossover I've ever read where I was satisfied with every bit of it. He does justice to every character. Like I think that even the most rah Marvel or DC fan would read this and come away going, he does a really good job. He's really even-handed. And it's a fun to read. It's a fun to read story. It's the kind of comic book that like superhero comic books should be like, because it's fun and it's interesting, and you walk away feeling like you got all the moments you wanted.
He does introduce a couple of caveats to balance things out in a way that I don't think was necessary, but it was justified.
Yes, yeah, there are a few things he does, but for the most part, it's really cool and it's a lot of fun. And stop making that face at me,
Sorry.
because you're turning me on.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so
it's a great series.
yeah, it is.
For all that I pretend to enjoy it, it is 1,000,000 times better than DC versus Marvel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is.
Which is
And
actually kind of excruciating and
What was
awful.
that Sweet Image Marvel team up? What was it? You remember when they did that?
no,
Are you talking about the Malibu Ultraverse?
Maybe.
When Marvel bought the Ultraverse back in the 90s, and then they like exported some of their characters like Black Knight to the Ultraverse, and it was
No.
just fucking awful beyond all belief.
I don't believe Marvel did anything awful in the 90s. Like,
I feel
everything they
like-
did was
I
gold.
feel like there was a crossover with Image.
I mean,
Image and
They could
Valiant
very
did a
well
big
have.
crossover.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
It was Death
It was
Maid.
that one.
It was
Yep.
the oft-referenced Death Maid,
You're correct.
which I'm pretty sure is the reason I had cancer twice.
Yeah. Yeah, blame it on that.
I'm blaming
I mean,
it on...
Marvel and Image have had some crossovers, like namely the Marvel Team Up issue 13. With
Yeah,
Spider-Man
Invincible.
and-
Well, yeah, but
Invincible.
never universe-wide.
Yeah, no.
Didn't Spider-Man team up with Spawn at one point?
No, Batman. It was a Batman Spawn thing.
Oh,
And Spider-Man teamed up with Red Sonja once.
more than once.
Oh,
Really?
he team, is
Conan's
that
been
what
a
we're-
thing in the Marvel universe on more than one occasion.
Yeah, I didn't know that Spider-Man.
I think
teamed
that
up
there
with-
were a couple of instances where Spider-Man teamed up with Red Sonja.
I think I just want to read a Wolverine Conan story now. I don't understand why that hasn't been a thing.
because it would be too awesome.
It would be too much awesome.
I'm the best at what
No,
I do.
I'm
No,
the
I'm
best.
the best.
No, I'm much better.
Conan just like
No,
cuts
I'm a-
Wolverine's arm off. He picks it up, he puts it back on, and he like tries to stab Conan.
I just want a story where Conan and Wolverine, they don't fight anyone. They just like, they're on a ship together. They get really blackout drunk and they just wake up in Siberia. And Conan just has to like eat Wolverine while Wolverine's still alive to survive. And it's just, like a 200-page epic graphic novel where 150 pages of that are just them walking through white wasteland, eating strips of Wolverine jerky off
I
his
wonder
arm.
if you could graft Wolverine onto things.
Like a
Like,
tree?
Yeah, like if you cut his arm off and then like cut your own arm off and put his arm on your arm, would it like graft onto your arm?
Would you
like a tree
become
sapling?
Wolverine?
Would you like get Wolverine's claws?
I think
Or could you like cut strips of his flesh out and like tie them to things and like grow a boat made out of Wolverine flesh?
I think that's how they made X-23.
Yeah, and Dawkins.
And if not, I know you can do it with Lobo.
Nice.
So we got that going for us.
Yeah.
That is my incredibly disgusting thought for today.
Let's pray it's your only one.
So, Cade, what are you going to pitch this week?
Okay, so I did want to apologize to Brian on Facebook because I haven't been recommending things on his list, and that's because I have not been reading digital comics lately. I had some tablet problems, and I had to send it in, and I got it back, but I don't have a screen protector, so I've got to wait till I get paid again to start reading it, stuff again on it. So I've mostly been recommending things that were on my bookshelf the past month. And the one I brought tonight is a book that I read every year or every other year, and I pitched it in the early days of this show, and it got passed around to people borrowing it, and it's that time again for me to read it again. And this is J. Michael Straczynski's Midnight Nation with pencils by Gary Frank, and I can't look at a Gary Frank book and not think of this book anymore. I'm just to that point where and so this is the story of a guy who falls in between the cracks of the living world and the dead world. So he can't interact with anybody, but he's still there and not quite alive, but he's alive. And he can go where he wants, and he's got to figure out things about himself and relive things, and it's interesting. It's kind of trippy, but also not so. Because I let Matt borrow it because he's like, oh well, I don't know J. Michael Straczynski to be very head trippy.
Yeah.
And I guess after talking to him about it, I guess it's not real trippy, but there are definitely some things that you're I wonder how that works, and you just start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And thinking about it, and
It's an interesting concept. I think I borrowed this after the last time you pitched it too.
yeah, you didn't finish it though.
I didn't finish it.
You didn't finish any books back then.
That I don't have time to read books. No, I
don't have time to read comics. I'm too busy reading comics.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I definitely have less time than I did then, but I read more books now than I did then. I don't know how that works. But yeah, I didn't finish it, but I do remember it being like a very interesting concept that I had not seen done before or since, I don't think. So
Neat. Anything else that you want to say about it, Cade?
No, just it's good. I read it a lot, and it's that time again to read it, because it's one of those ones where shortly after reading it, I forget the details, and I just remember the broad thing, and then when I'm reading it again, it's like the details are what matters in the story. And so it's almost always like a fresh read. So
Cool. Well, talking about the idea of revisiting things from the past, I am actually going to pitch a sequel to a book that we talked about previously.
oh man.
I'm going to pitch Universe X,
Oh.
which is the second book in the trilogy
Shit.
of Earth X, Universe X, Paradise X.
So
And I've read Earth X and I've read Universe X. I never read Paradise X. But
neither.
of the two that I read, I actually think I like Universe X better. And it kind of delves a little bit more deeply into some of the ideas and the issues that were raised in Earth X. And it's kind of an examination of the history of the Marvel Universe and the aspect of it, which is the multiverse.
Cool.
And it's kind
It's
of
pretty
delving
insane.
into the origins of the various kinds of superpowered characters that there are in the Marvel Universe, and going a little bit in terms of like what is the ultimate future of Earth going to be.
Cool.
And it's a really interesting series. It picks up on a lot of the crumbs that were left after Earth X, and it's very much of a piece with it. So if you enjoyed Earth X, you'll probably like this one too.
Cool. Is it the same team?
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
it's written by the same guy. I'm not sure if the artist was the same. The writer is Jim Kruger, who did the last one, and the pencils are Dougie Braithwaite
Yep. Same guy.
with Bill Reinhold and Robin Riggs on inks.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's the same team for all three of them. Because I have the first part of Paradise X, and I've tried to read it several times, and I just never was able to kind of punch through that wall and get into it.
Sometimes I have that problem where, like, every time I want to read the third book in a thing, I'll go back and read the first two first, and then it's like, by the time I get to the third one, it's like I'm oversaturated with those concepts.
Yeah.
Or I go to read the third one clean, like I haven't read the first two in a while, and I'll start reading and be like, I don't remember anything that's going. I'm not in the headspace for this.
Yeah, and every
know,
time
I'm
that
like-
I've gone to read Paradise X, I'm like, shit, I should really reread all of them again.
Yeah.
And then I reread Earth X, and I'm like, I'm fucking tired. I want to read
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
And
I
I
know-
don't fucking finish it.
I'm like thinking about this, and I'm like, ooh, I really want to vote for Toby's book, but I have to read Earth X again before I read it.
Why haven't they come out with...
Just listen to our episode on Earth
yeah,
X.
it'll totally remind... We have two of them.
Both of them.
You don't need to listen to the first one.
The first one's great. I don't remember that far back.
don't
I have no
remember that
idea.
far back.
I was not on that episode, and the reason that we did it again is because you guys said that you talked about it for 5 minutes and then got lost in a conversation about something else,
Well,
or that you had you hadn't finished reading it. Or
Joe
something.
and I had finished reading it, but other people on the show I don't think had finished reading it, so we tried not to. That was one of our attempts at what if we did it without spoiling anything episode, which I think is a lot less successful than ones where we just
it's a lot more difficult.
straight up tell you what happened. But
Well,
who
you
knows?
also put on the title Earth X Part 1. and
We
then
did, 'cause
there
we
just
had-
never was a Part 2.
We had always intended to go back and do more.
Yeah.
Why haven't they come out with a big dumb omnibus of this one?
They
Why is
have.
there no big? Did they?
Mhm.
Is it a big oversized dumb hardcover?
I'm sure that there is.
Cool.
Because I know that there is an omnibus because it's been referenced in other things I've read.
Cool.
When I read it, I was borrowing the trades off of Brant's bookshelf, which is totally what I plan to do this time if we ever pick it.
Yeah, Joe has the first one. That's where I read it every time.
I do. And I don't necessarily know that there is an omnibus as much as just big collections of all of them now. I am 90% sure that Earth X, Universe X, and Paradise X have never been collected in one volume. If it has, I've never seen it. And it was one of the books that I followed pretty closely for a while because I still need to buy volume 2 of Paradise X.
Okay, well
there
I
you
know
go.
there is a digital omnibus.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I'm sure
that makes sense.
Universe X is only 12 issues.
yeah.
Oh, it's yeah.
Well, there you go, Marvel. There's a good idea. Make a big dumb hardcover.
Like a big dumb hardcover.
Big
Ding,
dumb
ding,
hardcover
ding.
omnibus of
I won't
the
buy
Earth
it.
X trilogy. You know you'll buy it.
I won't buy it.
You'll see it and you'll be like,
there's
"Oh,
a
it's
different
so
one I want
pretty."
first.
Yeah, but
I-
if it comes
I-
out.
I-
Okay, so you guys all know how much I hate buying print comics now because I've moved too much and don't want to have to carry them around. But that fucking, the artist's edition of the Jack Kirby New Gods came out and I looked at it and I should have never did that because it is beautiful. It is absolutely fucking gorgeous and I want it
You done
so
goofed.
bad. I did. I fucked up and now I really want it. And it's like super, it's like $180 or something. And it's like,
You should move into a tiny house and then get a bookcase that only has room for one book on it.
yeah,
And
perfect.
that is your one book that you own.
I'm totally fine with that.
For some
Speaking of,
reason, a lot of my friends have been just like declaring that they're going to move into a tiny house.
Yeah.
dude, minimalism's it's a thing. You
I like stuff.
Not
let
for
your
me.
don't let your possessions own you, man. I'm a minimalist.
No, I'm totally down with that. And like, I love the idea of owning objects of quality and not
Yeah.
just filling up your house with crap.
Yeah, totally.
But like, I very much love the idea of owning things of quality. Like, I would love nothing more than to have my own house and have a library in that house, just a room with these like fine, like oak bookshelves, like
yeah.
filled with leather-bound books.
I could do without all that because again, like I don't miss my CDs, I don't miss records, I don't miss owning a bunch of comics. Like digital has replaced all that for me, and the whole point was, especially of collecting comics back in the day for me, was like I would collect all these old issues, and I wasn't collecting them because I thought they would be worth money. In fact, I sold them all for less than I bought them for. The reason I collected them was because I wanted to read those stories, and there was no other way. There were no trades, there was no digital, like none of that. So I had to go physically find like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle number 34. Like you had to go dig through boxes and stuff if you wanted to read that issue, and if you couldn't find it, you just didn't fucking read it. And so now digital has changed all that, and that makes me super happy.
And 95% of the time, I'm right there with you. Like,
Yeah.
I would much rather just have a digital copy, read it, like not have it take up any space. But when it comes to the things that I love, there's something about the experience of sitting down with a fine quality book and reading it that, like, you just can't replace with digital.
Maybe.
I just picked up, and by picked up, I mean Joe gave me for my birthday, the really nice hardcover edition of Nausicaa that came out
Oh, yeah.
last year. And man, just holding those hardcovers, it's just, I don't
feels
know,
nice.
I get this good feeling in my heart.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you can argue the merits of both, but one is not better than
No.
the
It's
other.
all
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
preference.
Yeah, it's all
And
preference.
something that I was always the same way about books. I was like, oh, well, I'll always love books. I'll always love books. And then I traveled a lot. Like I was gone for like weeks, months at a time, like driving around the Northwest and around the country. And it was like, you know, I could only take like 4 novels in my backpack, and I could only take like a couple trades, and I would burn through the trades in an afternoon, and then it would be like, well, now I'm on this 16-hour road trip, and I have nothing to read, and audiobooks became my savior because like they were all on my iPod, and I could just like fucking go into that. But now, if I travel, you know, I have my tablet and I can just
totally.
read all the time. And I love reading books now that I've burned through like 10 or 20 novels on an iPad. I love being able to change the background to black with white text and like in the dark and stuff. So I don't know.
So you're you saying that you're not going to buy a copy of our 24-disc vinyl edition of View from the Gutters?
It would be so many more discs than 24. That would assume that you
58.
could get like several episodes on a disc. Records are like half an hour.
I thought it was 45 minutes to a side.
So it depends. Yeah, like
Okay,
it depends
so,
on the
so
speed.
each
of the
episode is one disc.
If that, some of them are going to be 2. We have 70 episodes. They're going to be like 200 discs of the show.
So
And if you're a real fan, you'll buy
you'll buy all of
Fuck
them.
that.
We'll sign them all.
And then in
Anyway.
a few years, we'll re-release them, like remastered special
God.
editions with new liner
I'm
notes.
not editing that shit again. Once was enough. Speaking of not talking about this anymore because I want to recommend my book.
No, go for it.
I would like to pitch a book, and I didn't get enough was it Matteo Scalera this week. I didn't get enough. So I'm pitching another book illustrated by Matteo Scalera. And this one's written by Justin Jordan of Luther Strode fame. And this is Dead Body Road, another Image book. 52 weeks of Image. 2 weeks down now. 50 more to go.
So this is your very own personal countdown?
Oh, yeah. You're going to get it. Well, it's also because like I've recently discovered like 2 or 3 DC books that I'm like, damn, I really want to recommend those because they're old. I'm like, guess I'll have to wait a year. I said
Well,
it.
tell them to us, and we'll pitch them.
Yeah, for sure. So, Dead Body Road. This is a great crime fiction miniseries. It's 6 issues, and when I say crime fiction, I don't mean detective fiction. This isn't like Stumptown or any of that. This is like hardened criminals, like bank robber murderers and biker gangs, like criminal crime
They
fiction.
murder bank robbers?
They do murder bank robbers. That does happen in this.
Awesome.
There's no bank rapers, are there?
No.
Okay, those are the real scum.
Yeah. That is correct. Yeah, there are none of those in this book.
I'm gonna get inside you bank vault, and I'm gonna tear you up.
I mean, I guess technically all bank robbers then are.
I guess they are, huh?
Yeah. Well, anyway, this book focuses around one of these characters who was a criminal who was involved in this bank heist in which some shit went down and someone close to him was murdered, and he now is out for revenge to find out what happened and also to bring that person to revenge murder justice.
It's the best kind of justice.
Yeah, and it's cool, and I love the art. Matteo Scalera kills it on that. The writing's really cool. If you've read Luther Strode, it's just like, he's a great writer. I like the way he writes dialogue. And I love crime fiction. This feels like a gritty, just rough crime story. Like, if you like stuff like Inside Man and The Town and Drive and all that kind of like stuff about terrible people doing terrible stuff that somehow looks awesome because it's a movie and you're not there getting shot at, then I think this is a book for you. It's a different colorist. This is much, I would call it a little bit muddier, a little bit dirtier in its style intentionally to kind of evoke that sort of, I don't want to say grindhousey feel, but that, crime 70s crime movie feel.
Right.
And it's really good. It's fun, and it's one and done. 6 issues. That's the whole story. You get the whole package.
Dunyan rings.
Dunyan rings. And because of that, unfortunately, it is not a $9.99 Image trade because it's not a volume 1. It's a whole package. So it's $14.99 for the trade. But that's still a really good deal considering what you're paying for like Marvel and DC trades and stuff. And it's a complete story. So don't let the price tag overwhelm you on that one. But
Nice.
I really enjoy this story. It's fun. So check it out if you like crime stuff. Joe.
I'm gonna vote for Dead Body Road.
Sweet. Cade.
I hate you guys. This is one of the hardest choices I've had to make in a long time.
Well, then we're doing our job good.
That's 3 books I want to read. Can I go after Toby?
Yeah, okay. I'm going to vote for JLA Avengers.
Ooh.
Back to you, Cade.
Don't choose to break the tie. I promise it won't help you.
No,
Vote for Universe X.
I'm going to vote for Universe X.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm also gonna vote for Universe X.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah, I've never read it.
Oh, it's so good.
And I love Earth X.
There's some really
Like,
cool
honestly,
shit.
I like Universe X a lot better than Earth X.
Well, I love Earth X, and then you said all the right stuff, like multiverse, and basically that was it. And so I'm in.
Nice. And it's got Adam Warlock in it.
Yep. Now I'm double sold.
And Crusher Creel is in it, isn't it? That's the one that
Yes.
Well,
But shh. No spoilers. He hasn't read it yet.
I don't say anything.
How often does that happen?
what? Yeah.
There are a lot of characters in this book.
Deuterino and
Spoilers
that one
to
guy
Ryan.
and everybody's favorite. Who's that?
It's got Black Bolt in it.
It does have Black Bolt in it.
Cool.
All right, so next episode 75.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a while since we read a Marvel book. Is that true?
No.
We
Daredevil
just did Daredevil like 2
and
weeks ago.
Avengers
Oh, yeah.
Forever.
You know what? Whatever.
Also, we're planning something crazy for episode 100.
No.
even though
No,
it's
we're not.
still
Are we?
We
not
are.
happening.
Don't listen to
Don't.
them.
Why are you looking at? I don't know about this. How is this the thing? I didn't approve of
Episode
this.
50 was too much.
I didn't approve of this.
We are.
Joe,
We
you
are.
don't get to pick them anymore.
We talked about
After
it.
episode 50, we told you can't do this anymore.
I didn't say what it was.
I don't even know, and I'm already like, I don't want to do it anymore.
All of us are like that. We're like, no, Joe.
Joe had an
But I
idea.
didn't
I
tell
don't
you-
want to do it.
For episode 100, we're reading 16 books.
Oh my
No,
god.
no. Not multiple books.
Well, I'm
right.
about to find out what we're doing for episode 100, maybe.
I'll find
but,
out about that in like 4.5 months.
However, you guys have a
Tune in,
great
same
night,
place in the
morning,
gutters, same time in the
afternoon,
gutters.
weekend, weekday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever day this is.
Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Sunday.
And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
We love
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Me From the Gutters. I hope our recommendations have inspired you to go out and find some new comics you'll enjoy. Join us next time for a discussion of our selected title, but like every week, we encourage you to read all of the recommended books. In the meantime, please leave us an iTunes review. It really does help new listeners find the show. You can also like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube, and follow us on Twitter at ViewFRTHGutters. Feel free to email us at contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Please send us any questions, comments, or recommendations you might have. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as we post new videos every week. And thanks again for listening. And as always, keep reading.